What you want to do here is temper your eggs. If I just pour all this hot cream into there, I'm going to end up with scrambled eggs over here. So what I need to do is add that in slowly. So I'm just going to take my ladle here. I'm just going to start with one ladle at a time, and I'm going to whisk that in. Just keep adding a couple ladles at a time. And what that's going to do is slowly start to cook the eggs, and you're going to end up with a custard consistency rather than a scrambled egg consistency is what we're looking for here. And then once you get about half of it in there, as long as you're whisking, you can pour the rest in. All right, so that's basically your ice cream mix. Now, one other trick that folks may not have tried before is to get a creamier ice cream as you continue to cook it, just like you would a custard. So that's what I do, is I pour this right back into the same pot, put it back on a low heat, continue the mix. Now, while that finishes up, the last part of our dish is going to be the balsamic portion. To make the balsamic reduction is simply just a reduction of balsamic vinegar. You want to reduce that by half, so I would just pour that right into a small saute pan or even a small saucepan. Every now and then I add a couple of tablespoons of sugar. It depends on what type of balsamic that you're using. And then you just let that reduce. So that's basically the ice cream method. Now, if you wanted to do this with sorbet, you could do a very similar process with that. Sorbets, you don't even have to cook. I've done them before where I've gone out and I made one at home with orange juice and ginger. Put something else in it. I think maybe cinnamon. But it came out almost like a creamsicle. So I did the same exact thing, except instead of using cream, I substituted half of it with orange juice. And then I did the exact same process with that. If you want to do sorbet, you could certainly, even just buy fruit juice. If you tasted it and decided it was too tart, if you're doing a raspberry sorbet or a lemon sorbet, just add some sugar to that. Let it cool down. You can throw it right in your mixer and let that come up to sorbet. So basically, what I'm looking here for is what we culinarians call nappe. So basically, what that is see how it coats the back of the spoon. That's what we call nappe. So that's what you're looking for right there. If it wasn't thin, if it was too thin, it would fall right off the spoon. But if you see, if I put my finger through it, you can see the line of where it was. So I know that this ice cream base is ready to go. Okay? So that's basically all there is to it. It's making ice cream. Certainly sorbet is a good place to start until you get comfortable doing the egg mixture. So what you want to do at this point is take this ice cream mix and you want to refrigerate it before you churn it. So that may be another tip for you folks who've tried it at home. You get a grainier consistency if you try to pour this into your ice cream machine hot. It's better to bring it closer to the freezing temperature. You don't want to pop it in the freezer, but certainly bring it down to refrigerated temperature, which is what I've done here. So I have one that I refrigerated an ice cream base earlier. And here is my ice cream attachment. So this is what I was talking about that's available for all your stand mixers. It comes in 3 parts. This part just clips onto your standard motor here. And this is the bowl which will actually do the freezing of your ice cream, and this is what you pop in the freezer. It's filled with some sort of gel or freezing agent, so it actually freezes solid like an ice pack, and they say it takes about 15 hours to freeze solid. So you pop this in your freezer, get this ice cold the night before, slide this onto your stand mixer, and pop in your paddle. That's your ice cream machine. So then all you would do is pour in your ice cream base that you previously made. Whoops. Got a chunk in there. All right, and what that's basically going to do is as the ice cream base comes in contact with the outside of the bowl is going to freeze it, and then the scraper that's in there is going to scrape it out, so is what's going to continue to churn it. If you don't do the refrigerated step, what tends to happen is you get very large ice crystals, and that's kind of like chewing into ice as you're eating the ice cream. So to do this method really gets it creamier. Any questions on this process? No? So I'm actually going to save this ice cream base. I use all these deli containers. I was joking with one of the chefs in the kitchen that I'm just like Jose Garces. Have you ever watched the Food Network? He does the same thing. He's got deli containers everywhere. And then we just pop this in the fridge until it comes down to temperature, and then we can spin this as well.
Now, how long does it take to do it on a KitchenAid?
To actually freeze it?
Yeah.
I find it takes about 10 to 15 minutes for a batch.
So it's not a lot.
These will hold 2 quarts. If you fill it up all the way, it usually takes a little bit longer. So I think the batch that I wrote for you folks is 1.5 quarts, so it's a little bit less than a full batch can accommodate.
But if you don't have any of those things,
What's that?
if you don't have like that KitchenAid and all those,
You can make something very similar, which is called a granita, which is almost like Italian ice. So what you would do is you could make the base the same way, and then you would just put it out on a cookie sheet in a very thin layer, and then take a fork and scrape it, and then you can put that in the container. It's going to be a rougher consistency, but it's going to be more like shaved ice or Italian ice, but you could do a very similar thing with that if you didn't have a machine like this.
yeah, I've seen people manufacturing food processors.
I'm not familiar with that method. I'm sure that it would be possible. You'd need to have some sort of freezing
Right.
element to it, and I'm sure that different manufacturers, I'm sure, would make one. My parents, I remember at home when I was a kid, my parents used to have one of the old-fashioned ones that you pour the ice and the salt into it, right? And every now and then we'd be like, this ice cream was really chewy, and it would be the salt that fell into it. So I remember doing that down at the lake, but certainly those would work too. I think it was a crank model, and we used to make ice cream in the summertime. I don't know how well you can see that, but this is getting thicker in the machine. And sometimes what I do just to speed it up is you can always tip it a little bit to get it to go on the sides and bring it back. And but like I said, usually about 10 to 15 minutes, and you're going to have fresh ice cream. That's it. That's it. If you're going to do strict sorbet, I mean, you could just buy a bottle of fruit juice if you're happy with the flavor, and put it into the machine, spin it, and you got sorbet just like that. I tend to add sugar to mine, and then I like mine a little bit creamier, so I just put a little bit of cream in there. But it's really totally up to you, whatever your tastes are. Well, yeah. Again, sorbet and even ice cream. I mean, I could taste this right now as the ice cream base because I cooked the eggs and everything. If I taste it and go, oh, I'd like a little bit more vanilla, I could add a little bit more vanilla. Or how about some chocolate chips? Throw some chocolate chips in there. M&Ms, I can put those in there. Oreo crumbs, whatever I want can go in there now. So, one thing to remember when you are making frozen desserts is that as you taste them and flavors get colder, you tend to taste them less. So what you want to do is when you're making a hot base like the hot vanilla, if I had tasted it now, I want a really intense vanilla flavor to it, because as I freeze it, that flavor is going to mute a little bit. So just know that as you're tasting. Any other questions about that? All right, so while that goes, I'm just going to finish up my berries here, which are coming along. The berries that Chef Zach will serve you, you'll see a little bit of a difference. These are still a little bit firm, just because I just marinated these now. But his are going to be fully macerated when they come out to serve you folks, because I marinated and macerated them a little bit earlier in the afternoon, so they're going to be a little bit softer. Which means that they're going to have a little bit more of the natural sugars and a little bit more of the flavoring from the wine and the lemon zest and the honey.